Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Admadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Mochi Veda Vibhagine Vyom Abda Vyakta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 No Om. Okay, let's go to the page 162, verse 64, when the king says, I will now tell you the distinction between sleep and samadhi. Listen attentively. There are two states of mind, illumination and consideration. So I know we have seen it last week. The last thing we have seen. The first one is association of the mind with external object, and the second is the liberation on the object which was seen. So there are two states, okay, mental states. One is the illumination, and the other is the cognitive thinking process of deliberately define what you have illumined. So we illumine, and then we determine deliberately. So the second state, one is illumination, the other is mind, association of the mind with the object, which brings about mental deliberation on the objects. Illumination is unqualified by the limitations of the object. Illumination is just our nature, and it is it's unqualified, meaning to say it's not colored by any gunas or qualities or properties or attributes. It's just pure consciousnness. So the first aspect, although it is a reflection, but it holds its qualities of freedom from modifications, variations, and so on. So we have that purity in our mental human experience, in which the illumination is free of qualities and attributes. So it's free because it's not yet contacting any object. It's just flash. The light is flashing, and then there is another aspect which is a different state that the author is trying to. It's very subtle, this passage here. It's trying to clarify to us there is another state which is the mind in association with the object. The moment that the mind becomes the objects, and then it is qualified by the limitations of the objects, meaning to say the properties and attributes and usefulness. So the mind is already involved with an object. It's colored by the attributes of the gunas and the objects in their configuration. So therefore, the second is qualified by the limitations pertaining to the objects we contact. And it is the forerunner of the clear definition. Okay. What is the meaning of this forerunner here, please?
It comes before.
Okay, forerunner, comes before. Yeah. Yeah, elimination, as we know, is the first state, the first step. It goes very fast. We don't notice those nuances. The mind first notes the same in its extended vision. So the mind is just like, it's just illuminating. And then something catches our attention, and then zoom, we zoom it. The mind first notes the same, and it's free and unconcerned or extended vision, is going to zoom to get the deliberation in regards to the object. The impression is received only after noting the thing in its known extensive nature and becomes deeper on musing over the first impression. So it's saying here that the impression of the object is received only after noting the thing and in its specific nature, configured nature, you know, which limits the object but defines the object. So it gets involved with the nature of the object, and it becomes deeper on musing over the first impression, because as we know, the mind is free, and then it sees something, and then it gets our attention, and then it goes there, it has a first impression, and then afterwards becomes a process of consideration, and sometimes some people stays never making up their mind in respect to the consideration, in respect to something, you know, is it what seems to be? What is it? What I want? Do I like it? Do I not like? So it goes on. But first there is a first impression. The first impression is, oh, you know, I like it. Oh, I don't like. Oh, so and so. So there is no distinction, note, in the preliminary stage of simple illumination. When it's illuminating and not really caught up on an object, there is no distinction. Yeah? The thing itself is not yet defined, and who cares? You know, how many things we see when we are driving a car, and we never consider, you know, the mind is never there. Yeah? There is no distinction. You don't, I mean, I came driving from Brazil here, it's almost 4 hours and so on. And, you know, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen even the roads, I mean, the dark road, you know, because somehow I discount even that, you know. The only thing I see are trucks and cars and the distance between my car and things like that, you know. So the thing itself in the preliminary stage of the mental illumination is not yet defined. So illumination is said to be free and unqualified. So we are the author is driving us to a certain mental state, which is going to be referred to as samadhi. The mind is not caught up on anything. It's still alert, awake, you understand? But is not caught up with anything. And samadhi can be also savikalpa or sahaja samadhi. There is no distinction noted in the preliminary stage of simple illumination. The thing itself is not yet defined, so illumination is said to be unqualified. The thing becomes defined later on and is said to be such and such and so and so. I like it, I don't like it. That is the perception of the thing after we consider deliberately. Deliberately, we are considering that something has got our attention. Sometimes it gets our attention because there is an appeal, and sometimes gets our attention because there is a repulsion in respect to something. But we get involved when there is a certain degree of likes, like or dislike. Deliberation is again of two kinds. The one is the actual experience, and it's said to be fresh, whereas the other is cogitation over the former, and it's called memory. Okay, now we are going to that second stage when they say that this deliberation consideration appears in two stages, in two kinds. The one is the actual experience, it's said to be fresh. So at the very moment, our mind, which was in the state of freedom and not really engaged on anything, although in the awake state and alert, and now something captures its attention, and then there is a contact there. And there are two kinds of mental states in this state of deliberation, okay? So deliberation, again, is of two kinds. The initial one is the experience takes place. Oh, I see something, and the experience is fresh, and immediately I'm trying to determine it, to consider what I'm going to do with this, and so on. Whereas the other aspect, the other stage of deliberation is cogitation, and it is the recollection of that contact with an object as in my memory, so that at the very moment it was a fresh experience, the object was there, I did some determination, consideration, and I have been using my deliberation for that. It's not happening spontaneous like the illumining aspect of my mental state, which illumines regardless of my effort or choice. But now we are talking about considering, deliberately considering. So, and then we have the other one, which, okay, now the experience has passed, and somehow I can't engage any other object. Why? Because I'm just recollecting that experience, because it caught my attention to such an extent that now I'm working on the memory of that experience. You understand? So this is the other state in deliberation, okay, which is a recollection of a certain experience. And this flashed in my mind the memory as well of a certain assessment or understanding of that my understanding that a lot of people in the spiritual world present themselves as gurus because they had some beautiful spiritual, mystical epiphanies. And then a lot of the time they teach based on the recollection of that experience, telling people what it is, the self is the experience such as this and that, and I had this one, I had that one. They talk about all those experiences, which is a memory that somehow is being recalled, remembered, I'm just work on my memories, try to understand, wow, what a mystical experience. So I was really enlightened, maybe not, maybe, yeah. So, and not, okay, so I'm going to tell the story again to my disciples in the next satsang. And then every time one may tell the story a little bit different because the human mind likes to exaggerate, right? Deliberation is of two types. The one is the fresh moment, the other is recollection of memory. The mind always functions in these two ways. Boom, immediately fresh experience in which there is deliberation, and then recollection of the experience through our memory system, in which we do further cogitation over that contact, those objects of experience. The mind is always functioning this way, in the awake state, I would say. Dreamless slumber is characterized, on the other hand, by the illumination of sleep alone. Now we are talking about another state. Before we were talking about the awake state, and then in there was two aspects to our mental state. One is illumination, one is deliberation, and then deliberation in the awake state is being subdivided into the immediate and fresh experience and deliberation, and then later on further remembrance and cogitation about that experience. One is in the Vyavaharika, the other is the Pratibhasika. Okay, so it's happening here, and then it's happening later on upon my recollection of the experience. Now we move to the dreamless slumber. Is characterized by the illumination of sleep alone, and the experience continues unbroken for a time, whereas the wakeful state is characterized by deliberation repeatedly broken up by thoughts, and therefore is said to be ignorance. So now the author is going to move on some very interesting expositions here that is going to challenge us a little bit. In the dreamless, okay, which is deep sleep, yeah, dreamless sleep, is characterized by illumination. But what is it illumining? It's illumining the sleep state, the sleep world, I say the Ananda Maya. No, it's just the causal body, and it's everything that is in potential, but there is nothing showing up. Is consciousness that, yes, is it illuminating something? No, it's not, because the objects were reduced to their potential formation, let's say, okay? A seed potential form, it's in there, there is nothing, but illumination is there, but there is nothing to be known. So what is, where the author is taking this conversation is very interesting, because it's debating what is ignorance. Is deep sleep ignorance, and or the awakening state is ignorance? Because he says here that dreamless slumber is characterized by this illumination, and the illumination of the sleep world. Okay, so the dream state and the dream reality, and then the awake state, the awake reality, and then the Ananda Maya, which is the sleeper experiencing the sleep universe, meaning to say the void or nothingness. So it's characterized by illumination of the void, and the experience continues unbroken for a time. So we have an experience in dreamless sleep in which the illumination, the illumining nature of the mind is continuous and unbroken. There are no thoughts breaking it up, okay? It stays for a period of time, just like illumining the dream, the sleepless, the sleep dreamless world, okay? And the experience is unbroken for a time. Whereas the wakeful state is characterized by the liberation. The liberation was not really present in the dreamless state, but in the wakeful state, it's in there. The wakeful state is characterized by the liberation repeatedly broken by thoughts. And therefore it's said not to be ignorance, okay? So ignorance then is defined here as the experience of the void, okay? So there is nothing to be known, and therefore, we say it's a state of ignorance, whereas the state of wakefulness is characterized by the liberation, and it's continuously broken. Why? Because the mind, especially the mind, which is more rajasic, produce thoughts, one after the other, and then this ignorance, which is the experience of the void, is again and again being broken up by thoughts, and therefore it is said not to be ignorant. Sleep is a state of ignorance. Niscience ignorance, not knowing. Though it consists of illumination alone, yet it's said to be ignorance for the same reason as a light, although the thought luminous is said to be insentient. So this is a bit profound. He's making an analogy here that later on the commentaries are going to discuss that. We say that there is a sleep. Sleep is considered a state of ignorance, not knowing, but it consists of illumination and illumination alone. Okay, but this illumination is not illumining the aham and the thoughts about the objects of the world. So therefore there is no aham, and then we say it is ignorance, okay, because there is no knower there. But it is illumination alone. Therefore, it is blissful, it is wonderful, it is continuous, and it's not broken up by again and again thoughts and so on. So it consists of illumination alone, yet it's said to be ignorance for the same reason as a light, though luminous, is said to be insentient. Now I say that we have we have a fire candle, and then we have a flame. The flame is sentient, although it illumines its surrounding. And then it says that the mind in that state of deep sleep is there as pure luminosity, but the mind is insentient. Therefore, it is ignorance. So in which way that consciousness in the causal state, which is the state of deep sleep, in which the subtle body somehow rolls back or shrinks back or resolves back into the causal body, and then there is no experience of anything, but there is still light there, but there is no the I thought experience, the thoughts of the world. Therefore, we say that is ignorance, but then it brings in the analogy of a flame. A flame is insentient, although it illumines, but we know that consciousness is the only source of sentience, okay? But the deep sleep, okay, which previously here, the author says that it is illumination, consists of only illumination and only alone illumination. So if this sleep is a state of nescience, though it consists of illumination alone, so there is light there. As we know, consciousness is the only source of sentience, but yet it's here present in analogy to a candle, a flame of a candle that although it illumines, it is insentient. So what is insentient? Of course, not consciousness, but we would say that the prana is insentient, okay? So the prana is being compared to a flame that although it illumines something, it's insentient. And here in deep sleep, we have the prana, which although it consists of illumination without consideration or without deliberation, yet is said to be ignorance and then presents the light of the flame of a candle, which although it illumines, is insentient. Okay, so the prana is insentient. Why? The aham is not emerging as a pure reflection, a good reflection of consciousness, with the qualities of conscious existence, you understand? So this aham is not there. The aham that later on in the awake state can purify and recognize aham brahmasmi is not there. So this light is there in the prana, but it's more or less like a light coming from the flame of a candle, which although it illumines something, it's insentient. And here there is a note that is going to further discuss this. Do you have anything to say, contribute, comment?
I was just thinking about babies and how babies have that first illumination without all that deliberation, and maybe that's why they're so blissful and it makes everybody
Yeah, very, very, very good point. Yes, we saw the author mentioning briefly before about the babies, and they brought it back right on. And the babies in that state of bliss, although when it gets hungry, it becomes unblissful. It makes everybody unblissful around the baby. Okay. So there is a note here. Pure intelligence is made up of luminosity. Now the author is commenting on that analogy of the light of a candle, which is insentient. And here it says what I was trying to say before. Pure consciousness is made up of luminosity. All luminosity originates from consciousness. But this consciousness is not insentient like a flame. This consciousness is self-conscious existence. It is dreaming with consciousness, thus differing from the example of the flame. For intellect is evidence as thinking principle. So we know that pure intelligence manifests as the intellect. And the intellect is suppressed, the mind is suppressed in the prana jiva, okay, because everything is just suppressed. It's just there as potential, but there is no aham. The prana jiva aham is insubstantial, if we could say something about that. We can recollect the experience, but yet there was no sense of sentience in there. The intellect is evidence as a thinking principle. So we know that we are conscious. The intellect knows I am, and I'm conscious of my existence. Therefore, it is called absolute consciousness, the active principle, the vibratory movement, all-embracing self or God. Because of these potentialities, it creates the universe. And now it goes into a lot of these technical, complex, sophisticated concepts in regards to the causal body, the prana jiva, the seed of the jiva, the prana jiva, in which way it is the absolute consciousness, and in which way the absolute consciousness somehow brings about the prana and the creator, the prana and the world. So it says that the intellect of the jiva evidently is conscious existence, because we all experience the thinking cognitive principle, I am, and I'm conscious that I am, I exist. So therefore we can say that this consciousness, this human consciousness, okay, it is fundamentally, it is absolute consciousness, okay? It is active principle, which is somehow vibrates and all embracing the universe, and there are very serious, complex discussions or how to say, expositions of these concepts of consciousness, Satchitananda, absolute consciousness, having also some active principle that could explain better how come Maya is resolved in consciousness. Consciousness is not Maya, but Maya is something that's not apart from consciousness. But in any case, the powers of Maya belongs to consciousness. But all these technical, complex, the notions of Purusha and Shakti and all these things, which is not absolutely relevant for self-recognition and moksha. But we know that this absolute luminosity, which is experienced by us in the deep sleep and experienced by us in samadhi and experienced by us even in the wakeful state, this principle, is full, it's absolute, and it's all the time present. And this principle creates the universe, okay? Also, Sri Shankara has said in one of his works, Soundaraya Lahari, says that consciousness of Brahman, Shiva, owns his powers, his skills, okay, his prowess, expertise of to Shakti. And now he's saying that consciousness of Brahman, there is a certain Shakti, and Shiva therefore makes use of that Shakti, although Shiva is one without anything, not even any skills or expertise or potentials or powers, but there is this fine line between Shakti or Maya and so on. and Shiva or consciousness. It says that Brahman, Shiva, consciousness cannot even steer in the absence of Shakti. Shiva should not therefore be considered to be an inexpressible entity depending on Shakti for his movements upon Maya, like a man is dependent on his car to move, to move from one place to another place. So he's just saying that Shiva, Brahman, don't consider that it is just impotent and it depends on Maya, depends upon, Shakti, the same way a man depends on his car to move from point A to point B. In that work, Sri Shankara says Shiva is walked by thee. What is this yoked by thee? It's moved by thee or what?
Are you talking about being yoked? It's being tied to or
Tied to?
something like that?
Okay. He said the Shiva is yoked by thee or Shakti to his true being. Therefore, a blessed few worship thee as the endless series of waves of bliss. So now it seems that Shiva is associated to Shakti, because Shakti is something that happens within the scope of Brahman, but yet it's not Brahman, but it's so closely associated to Brahman, this primordial, supreme Shaktis or principles, that it's taken to be the very being of Brahman. Therefore, some blessed few are worshippers, okay, devotees, a blessed few worship this Shakti as endless series of energies producing bliss, as the underlying basis of all that is, as the supreme force, supreme intelligence, maintaining the universe and so on, and as the consort of transcendence. Thus, the identity of Shiva and Shakti with each other, or with transcendence, is evidence. So in which way Brahman or Shiva relates to Shakti? And it says here that it is evident. So I don't see it clearly evident, neither by logic nor by any experience. But we know that there are certain energies that produce a certain blissful, transcendental vibrations, okay, which is associated to the supreme intelligence, supreme force. And this supreme intelligence, which in a simple language, in our Sampradaya, we call it the pure Sattva Guna. So there is a connection there with the state of an entity of Jivatma, okay, which can associate and identify Shiva and Shakti within one another. And it says that this transcendence is evident. The argument that the universe is illusory, being a figment of imagination, like a rabbit's horn, is extended further by the statement that the creation leading up to it must be equally illusory. Okay. We are saying that there is consciousness, there is Shiva, there is Brahman, the only reality, and then we take Shakti to be something so closely associated with Shiva. And some say that there is enough evidence that these supreme energies or powers forces. They are inherent to Brahman or Shiva. Yeah? But then he brings another argument. The argument the universe is illusory, being a figment of imagination, like a hare's horn, is extended further by the statement that creation leading to it must be equally illusory. So there are many things that we imagine, but they are not existent. And then we have the situation here that he says, in the same way, a horn of a rabbit is non-existent, although it can exist in imagination. You know, we have to understand that the creation of the universe and the creation that produced the universe must be equally illusory. Okay, so creation is illusory because all there is Brahman or Shiva. This principle in anything that further springs, emerge from Shiva's Shakti is another illusion, it's another trick. Then the coexistence of Shiva and Shakti is a useless consideration concept, because we know that the only reality is Shiva or Brahman. Shakti, to associate and to equalize Shakti with Shiva is a useless concept, because everything below the line of Maya, so to speak, is just part of that, which is not exactly like a horn of a rabbit, because a horn of a rabbit cannot be experienced in the Vyavaharika. But it's not exactly like that. Why? Because we experience creation, we experience the world of matter and energy. So, and then we need to remember the other Vedantic, clear and evident and beautiful, elegant concept of mithya, something that it's not existent, it's not non-existent, it's something other than both. Okay, and that's called mithya. It's not real, but it's available for experience. It is an illusion, yes, but it's an illusion that is available to experience. So what is the big deal? I mean, what is the usefulness of this equality between energy, Shakti, and Shiva? The coexistence of Shiva and Shakti becomes useless, and Shiva being incomprehensible without Shakti, with the energies that brings about the Jiva Atma, this energy and so on, that allows us to have this conscious intelligence, to even consider the creation, consider the substratum of creation as pure Shiva, pure Brahman, and then the Shaktis, the energies that somehow brings about Jiva Atma and all these considerations. So none of this is available without Shiva, without Brahman. And the coexistence of Shiva and energies is useless, this notion. Shiva is not comprehensible without these energies. Then the idea of a Godhead falls to peace. Okay, so I went into the internet to see Godhead. There are different definitions of Godhead. It's the idea of a creator. So when we really consider the nature of the universe, we see that it's not really real. It's just a superposition, projection. And okay, so but then when it was created, who has created that? And then when it was created, false. And then who has created false? Everything falls. So the creator, the creation, and the Jiva Atma, all the three falls to peace, because in reality, it's all mithya. So that's the bottom line. But the scriptures point to God. They blame God as the creator of something that is not real. Point to God as the primal essence from which the world has sprung. in which it exists and in which it resolves. It springs from pure Sattva or Ishvara in our language, and it resolves back in Ishvara, and Ishvara resolves back into Shiva or Brahman, in Pralaya. So in which it exists and in which it resolves back. That statement about the reality of the creation, the creator, and the distinction between Shiva and Shakti, and in which way they are the same, all of that is meaningless, okay? Because Shiva is the only reality. Brahman is the only reality. Any and everything else resolves in Brahman, and it's proved by pure logic, Vedantic logic, to be something similar to a mirage in the sand of a desert, which is there, available for experience, but it's not really there on close examination. Why should the other scriptural statement, there is no more than one alone to be true? So now he's bringing this most radical Vedantic Upanishad statement, there is no more than one alone be true. Why these statements? It is to lend support to the argument of illusion. So the author here is the note. Is it still the note? Yeah. The noter, if we could say, the author of the note is saying, it's a commentator here. Why there is no more than one alone to be true, the only reality, Brahman, one without a second. Is it to lend support to the argument that the world does not really exist, but it's just a mirage, an illusion? Yes, the proper course will be to look for harmony in these statements in order to understand them aright. So we have all these different statements, sometimes describing Mithya as a Mithya reality. That to many people, it's a useless work, but if we would not understand in the proper context, we would say we are wasting time with karma, dharma, and all the sadhanas to prepare and develop the intellect, okay? So we need to understand in the context of Mithya, these things do exist and need to be, addressed. So why the statement that there is only consciousness and nothing else? It leads support to the illusion. Yes, the proper course will be to look for harmony in these statements. So this distinction, this resolution of these apparent contradictions, it's fundamental. It's very simple after all. It's just a clear understanding of what belongs to Satya and what belongs to Mithya, and avoiding confusing one with the other or superimposing one on the other in the mutual superimposition. So for that, we need to look into the context of these Vedic teachings, and find the harmony. Harmony means to say you just resolve the apparent contradiction by understanding which context those statements were being presented. And then we understand them right, we understand the teachings, and we resolve those contradictions that a lot of the times keeps us doubtful in respect to the scriptural knowledge. And if we have doubt or suspicious in regarding to the scriptures, and then we don't really grow with it. Their true significance lies in the fact that the universe exists, but not separately from consciousness, the primal reality. Call it God. Okay, God 1, God 2, Ishvara 1, Ishvara 2, Nirvikalpa Brahman, Savikalpa Brahman, howsoever we call it. That is the primal intelligence, the primal reality. Okay, everything exists within this Satchitananda, this consciousness, and not apart from it, exactly like image project on the screen on a movie, a cinema hall. Wisdom lies in realizing that everything is consciousness, everything is Brahman. Wisdom lies in not that much in those complex, sophisticated discussions, you know, in respect to the nature of Brahman beyond Satchitananda. When we start, oh, yes, but yeah, Purusha and this and that. So the wisdom lies in realizing that everything is Brahman. You need realizing as Brahman. Everything as Brahman, and treating it as the void. Okay, why he's bringing the void in the equation here? Wisdom lies in realizing everything as Brahman and not in treating it as this or that. And in the case of the deep sleep, as the void. Okay, so the three states and the three worlds or universe, they need to be resolved in Brahman as Brahman. So we can look and try to understand what is the void of the deep sleep, the dreamless sleep. What are the namarupas in the dream state, and which are the namarupas in the awakeful state, in which the objects appear physically into our sense organs. The truth is that there is only one reality, which is consciousness in the abstract and also transcendental. So that's the only reality. This is something that we all heard before, even in other spiritual circles for decades before meeting Vedanta. I used to hear, all there is consciousness and you are that. This is a famous statement. All there is consciousness and you are that consciousness. So that is the ultimate truth. There is only one reality, is the consciousness of the observer. The experiencer, the knower. There is a consciousness there, illumining, revealing, and knowing the illuminating nature of consciousness and the deliberated aspects of all objects. The moment the mind changes its states from pure illumination into consideration, and then further recollection and further consideration, that there is another word that it's very nice that was used before. This transcendental, abstract, the most subtle consciousness is the only realities irradiating the whole universe in all its diversity, and all of that within its own being. It reflects the universe. Everything is reflecting consciousness in the scope of consciousness, exists in the scope of consciousness, and it needs to be understood as consciousness. Everything is resolved as consciousness, in consciousness, as consciousness. The Jiva Atman needs to resolve its sense of identity in consciousness as consciousness. One's own being of non-dual nature, one without a second. And this diversity, this irradiation, this reflection is possible by virtue of its self-sufficiency, which we call Maya or Shakti. Now he's just making sense about this subtle distinction, Shiva or Brahman, and then Maya or Shakti. So this universe irradiates or reflects as the entire universe with numberless configurations, diversities of name, colors, and forms. And this is happening from consciousness, in consciousness, by virtue of its self-sufficiency. So it means to say, where is consciousness somehow bringing about all this universe, all this diversity of objects. As we know, we have the mirror. We have the mirror, and the mirror is going to reflect. Is going to reflect. So the nature of the mirror is to reflect, yes, but it needs to have something to reflect. So we need to put some object before the mirror, or at least to have some space. It's going to reflect space, and nobody's going to notice the space because we always tend to discount the most subtle. So, but in the case of consciousness, this transcendental, most subtle, abstract nature existence, which is self-contained, self-sufficient, self-conscious, okay, is the virtue by which it brings about the universe. This self-sufficiency, self-contained power is called Maya or Maya Shakti or Shakti energy. So there is something that is beyond the comprehension of the human intellect, the relationship between Brahman and Maya Shakti. If there is something that even the scriptures say it's beyond, but there are a lot of Mahatmas or gurus that likes to go deep into these discussions of this subtle distinction between Brahman and Maya Shakti. So this self-contained consciousness, self-sufficient conscious existence, has the power to bring about this reflection. And we call this power Maya Shakti. Ignorance lies in the feeling of differentiation of the creatures from the creator. Now he just brings it back to the most fundamental value of all of these teachings. It says that ignorance lies in the feeling of differentiation of the creatures from the creator. And the creator here is being presented as Brahman, as Shiva, okay? So self-contained, self-sufficient consciousness. Everything is being reflected in consciousness, by consciousness, what we call transcendental. It transcends the reflection itself. It does not depend on anything because it's self-sufficient, self-contained, and the universe, because Maya contains the seed of the entire universe. So, and then it, boom, it pops like nothing. And then he says, ignorance lies in the feeling of differentiation of the creatures. So the Jivatma is referring to us. The ignorance or knowledge always refers to the Jivatma. Ignorance lies in the feeling, notion, or conviction that there is a difference between I, Jivatma, and I, Paramatma. I, the creator, I, Brahman, I, pure, limitless consciousness. This ignorance lies in this notion that I am small and insufficient, limited, and so on. And Brahman is, is limitless, full, complete. So this differentiation between Brahman and the Jivatma and Paramatma, see difference there is ignorance. The individuals are only details in the same reality. So now we are talking, there is only one reality. The reality is consciousness, and the individuals, which are nothing but reflect consciousness, are just small reflections, okay? Small reflections, which are details within the same reality, okay? There is only consciousness. The individual is human consciousness, reflect consciousness. These individual consciousness are only details in the same non-dual reality, which is original, limitless consciousness. In sleep, In sleep, the insentient phase of stupor overpowers the sentient phase of liberation. So in deep sleep, we have lack of Sattva guna, as we know. We go into our causal body to experience the prana and the void, the lack of objects. So there is the insentient phase of stupor overpowers the sentient phase of what? Of the liberation. But there is something there which is the illumination that is there. But the liberation is not there, because the liberation requires what? I and the object I'm capturing, and then my considerations in regards to the idam, aham and idam, and my considerations. So in sleep, the insentient phase of stupor, okay, overpowers the sentient phase of the liberation. Again, we are talking about what is sentient and what is insentient, okay? So the subtle body, even in the wakeful state, okay, is there, okay? It reflects light. But we need something to convert that reflecting medium and that reflected light. We need something to turn that reflecting light into a sentient light that can determine and deliberately consider and deliberate come to the conclusion that I am the only source of sentience, because I am original, limitless consciousness. So where is the sentience and insentience coming from? The sentience coming from the phase of stupor, which overpowers the sentient phase of the liberation. The sentient phase of the liberation is the aham of the Jivatma, which is also can be referred as human consciousness, which is by definition consciousness experienced by the individual soul in the awake state. So in sleep, the insentient phase overpowers the sentient phase of the liberation, okay? The sentient phase of the liberation, we are sentient beings in the state of consideration, which we do deliberately exercise our intelligence, our ability to discriminate, discern, deliberate, decide, and so on. There is consciousness, there is a sentient principle, okay? In deep sleep, the insentient phase overpowers the sentient, but the factor of illumination is ever present, and that alone cannot be apparent to man in the absence of deliberation. Oh, so beautiful music, huh? Music, Vedantic music. But the factor of illumination, even in the state of the prana jiva, in which aham is not there to deliberate and consider anything, okay? So there is a absence of the duality, experiential and object of experience, okay? So in that, the insentient aspect of our day-to-day human experience, okay, is there. But the liberation is not there because aham, the experience entity in its conscious or subconscious, which is more the case of our dream state, is not there. But the factor of illumination is ever present. Illumination is always there, ever present, and that alone cannot be apparent to man in the absence of deliberation. If the intellect is not there in its full capacity in the wakeful state, or in its let's say abstract or subconscious capacity in the dream state, okay, it's not there. There is no I, and there is no this or that. So in the absence of this aham, of the wakeful state, deliberation is not possible. And deliberation is the sentience which its own true consciousness to Brahman to begin with, but can be recognized by the Jiva Atma. And the proof of that is that we are constantly deliberating through our experience in the wakeful state. Therefore, sleep is said to be the state of ignorance, as distinguished from wakefulness, which is considered to be a state of knowledge. Why there is knowledge there? Because the chit aspect of Shiva, the chit aspect of Brahman is there. And what is the chit aspect of Brahman? Is the aham. Then the power that human beings have to cognize, to know the knowingness, individual knowingness of each one of us. So in the absence of aham, in the awake, in the deep sleep, we are said to be ignorant, and that we are distinguished by that in the wakeful state because we have the knowingness ability, the power to say I am, and the word is. Okay, this is knowledge. This is the chit aspect of Shiva, the chit aspect of Brahman manifest in our human experience. And then it carries on. It's so beautiful. I hope you guys have enjoyed. We're going to, what's the day today? Today is Thursday. We're going to carry on next Monday from the verse 73. And it keeps going very beautifully, and then he's going to make a clear, beautiful, brilliant distinction between deep sleep and samadhi. Okay? Any commentaries? Any complaint? Did everybody follow?
Swami Swavapriyananda's got a nice quote. He says, sleep isn't an absence of experience, it's an experience of absence.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very nice. Can you write it in our WhatsApp page? Otherwise, I may forget it. It's a very nice quote. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. We'll meet again soon, Ishwara willing. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Arvinda.
Thank you. Thank you all.